What's up, Gator fans? It's your boy, the Black Andy Cat. We're back for these three things, and today we're talking about the Jon Sumrall honeymoon, right? We're deep into the Jon Sumrall honeymoon period as Gator fans, right? Things are looking up. When they first made the hire, it was kind of lackluster response from Gator Nation. People were a little suspects. There were concerns because he wasn't the big name. Everybody had their heart set on the clown Lane Kiffin. And so when Jon Sumrall's name was announced, there was a lot of people who weren't too sure. They wanted a bigger name, a guy who had experience at the P4 level. None of these things, Jon Sumrall didn't fit the bill, right? People had their minds set for so long on something in particular. There was a disappointment. It was like Christmas, right? When you was a little kid, you had your heart set on the Hot Wheels track, and then you know peoples came home, right, with no Hot Wheels, and so you was a little disappointed. At least I wasn't. See, I knew I wasn't getting them big old Hot Wheels set. Remember that Sears catalog? You used to flip through the Sears catalog, pick all the stuff you wanted, and you never got any of that big stuff, right? Like the Battleship and all that stuff. Nah, right? So that's kind of how Gator fans felt when Jon Sumrall got hired, all right? But he turned things around with his initial press conference. People started to feel a little better about him. That started to turn the tide, and then came the portal period. Well, the hiring started to build up. A little more hope and excitement started to build, and then came the portal, and people got excited about Jon Sumrall, right? So we're in that honeymoon phase. I remember when I first got married, somebody told me when you're in that honeymoon phase of your marriage, you see the best of people. But once that honeymoon phase wears off, you start to see the rest of people, all right? So the honeymoon phase that we're dealing with right now with Jon Sumrall, is it real? Should Gator fans start to get a little excited? Should we buy in a little bit to what Jon Sumrall's doing with the Gator football program? That's what I'm going to discuss in this particular episode of These Three Things. Before I go any further, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe, all right? We're trying to boost those numbers. The last video I said, hey, get me over 400. You almost got me there. You got me 370. So just give me that 30. Get me to 400 on this one. And I love you all right? Like the video, ding. Don't forget to like and get in the comments. Tell me what you think. Should we be buying into Jon Sumrall? Get after this discussion. Jump in. I'll tell you my reasons. Because personally, I feel like we should start to buy into what he's doing. Now, does that mean I'm guaranteeing he's going to win a natty? No. Does that mean I'm guaranteeing he's going to go undefeated next season? No. I do think the program is headed in the right direction. I do think that he was the right choice for the circumstances of this time. You lost out on the guy, or not. Some people say lost out. I heard a local radio host, Mike Bianchi, talk about the Gators were rejected. I don't believe the Gators were rejected. I believe the Gators realized that Lane Kiffin was a clown and decided not to get caught up in his drama. And so they went ahead because they already had Jon Sumrall sitting in the hopper. They'd already done their research and said, you know what? It ain't worth it. This isn't what we need right now to build our program. If you think about it, he's right. You don't need, look at the portal, right? Look at what Lane Kiffin, he's struggling in the portal a little bit right now, right? So Jon Sumrall, more stable, he's focused, he's committed to Florida. This is an important job for Jon Sumrall. We're not so certain how important that LSU job is for Lane Kiffin, because Kalen DeBoer gets fired next season. Is Lane Kiffin trying to roll out and head over to Alabama, right? Whereas we know Jon Sumrall is trying to get it done. Though I do have a little fear that if he does really well here at Florida, that Kentucky's going to come calling, and that's going to be hard for him to resist. Okay, so, but either way, should we be buying into this honeymoon? Should we believe this is the rest of Jon Sumrall is going to be as good as the honeymoon is making us feel right now? And like I said, I believe that we can start to buy in a little bit into Jon Sumrall. And so here are my three things. Here are my three things that tell me that, hey, maybe this is legit. This isn't just the honeymoon phase, that he's going to continue to do good things for the Gator football program. Thing number one, his retention and the people he let go as the portal opened up, right? So big retention, right? He got Jadan Baugh to stick around. He got Jaden Woods to stay around, right? Those are big deals. Jadan Baugh had his choice. Texas was writing big checks to Jadan Baugh. They wanted him very badly. They lost a lot of their running back room, so they needed somebody to replace that. They got that Texas money, and they were willing to pay big dollar for Jadan Baugh, but Jadan Baugh stayed, right? So there was some belief that was created in the system, in the logo. So when you got a guy who has choices like that, Jaden Wood, right? He had his choice. Defensive lineman come at a premium in the portal. Sumrall got him, pulled him back out of it, pulling him back in, right? So there's something about Jon Sumrall that some of these key players are believing in. Maybe it's the check, but like I said, there were other places writing big checks. I don't believe the Florida Gators are writing the biggest checks in the country because they just don't have that. All right, Texas Tech. Texas Tech got big bread, and they're willing to write. They have almost no cap on how much money they're willing to spend, and we'll get back to that in a second. And so I think that Jon Sumrall, there's something about him that makes players want to stay. Look at Dallas Wilson, BB3. Both of those guys stuck around, right? They believed in the system. Dallas Wilson said something of the effect that, that first meeting when he came in, there was a juice to the room, right? You're juiceless, you're useless. That's Jon Sumrall. But Dallas Wilson talked about that. He said, hey, that first meeting, there was just a different level of intensity, something. And he said this to the effect that something we hadn't seen before in this program, right? That's all he had known was Billy Napier. So there's something tangible. Another thing that we can take from it, okay, it tells you that the juiceless or useless isn't just a slogan, but really how he plans on running this team, is look at the players that he let go. Okay, Aiden Mizell, DJ Lagway, all right, Trey Wilson, all great players, but they were hardly ever on the field, right? And so there was a toughness there. And so that was missing, right? Because they couldn't stay on the field. He wants tough players. Buster Faulkner wants tough players. Look that up. Buster Faulkner literally says, I want tough receivers, all right? So he's finding the people that embody what it is that he wants from his football team, and that's real, all right? That's not something we saw from Billy. Billy was kind of taking whatever he could take. He was low-key, didn't have that intensity. We're seeing that not just in his words, but Jon Sumrall is making that known by the people he's brought to the program and the people he's let go, all right? And so thing number two, look at some of the people that he brought to the program, right? We got Eric Singleton Jr. All right, that may be the biggest, that I would say that's the biggest pickup he's made in the portal, maybe outside of Aaron Philo. But Eric Singleton is a guy who played at Georgia Tech, went to Auburn, has done really well. Okay, this guy's top notch. Actually considered making himself available for the draft, decided not to, and came back for one more season. Didn't go back to Auburn, came to the University of Florida. Again, there's a belief. Why didn't go in the draft? That's an indication that maybe he didn't think his draft spot is where he wanted it to be. So you got to look at the subtleties of this whole thing. He's saying, all right, I got to go back somewhere where I can get my numbers up and I can show my skills so I can move up in the draft. He chose the University of Florida. That wouldn't have happened with Billy Napier in most cases because that wasn't a high-powered offense. So you're talking about a guy like Singleton looking for a place to drive up his draft stock. He comes back to Buster Faulkner, an offense he's familiar with, all right? If you're not familiar, Buster Faulkner runs a variation of the air raid, kind of like a power air raid or a power spread. In future episodes of the podcast, we already got that planned. We'll talk about what that offense entails and what we can expect. But what Singleton Jr. understands is that the ball's going to be in the air. He's going to get plenty of opportunities to catch the ball and show off his skill and improve his draft status. So that's important things to understand. I've also heard a few Gator fans kind of say, well, why are we getting all these Georgia Tech players? Well, that's because they know the system. And again, Buster Faulkner's offensive scheme, like I said, this kind of evolution, it's an evolution of the air raid, requires quite a bit, right? It's much different than what Billy ran, which was very simple. and very kind of mundane. So there's a belief, not just within the people in the program, but there's some belief from people outside the program who have experience with the players or have experience with these coaches that say, yeah, that's a legit system. That's where I want to be. I want to be on the big stage. So don't take too much from the fact that he's pulling players from where, particularly with the offense from Georgia Tech. Hey, these are ACC guys. Are they going to be able to compete on this level? What it's telling you is that Jon Sumrall ain't trying to sit around and develop. He's trying to get out there. He wants his offense to work early. He wants his defense to work early. He wants things to happen off the rip. He doesn't want to delay. He wants to hit the ground running. He wants to hit spring practice running. So these are all very good signs. Reason number three I'm buying into Jon Sumrall up to this point is the quality of the staff that he's hired, right? So he went out and got Buster Faulkner. And so a lot of people feel like that's a good or very good choice. And it is. I believe it is. Again, talking about his air raid system. Once again, subscribe because I'm going to have a video about that air raid system or that modification of the air raid that he runs. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And so when you look at some of these things that have happened, right, the staff quality that he's brought on, Brandon Harris, right, Phil Troutwine, probably the biggest hire he's had because the Gators O-line has been their biggest weakness, right, for years. I've talked about that before. Brought in the guy that's going to attract top-notch linemen. Already happened with the kid from Stanford, right? Another one of those things. People are like, well, that guy's got terrible PFF grades. Yeah, he was a freshman starting at Stanford. Most linemen don't start their freshman season. That usually takes you about 2 years before you're ready to start as a lineman. Go check it out. If you're starting as a freshman, that's usually because the team is desperate and doesn't have a real lineman to put in that position. I think that was the situation with the transfer from Stanford. He said it himself, I came somewhere where I could be developed. Being developed was his priority. Phil Troutwine was the guy he decided he wanted to be developed by, and that's because he has a reputation. And Troutwine is a Gator, and that's it. You know, Jon's brought a lot of Gators onto the program, right, onto the staff. That's important, right? You imagine Billy, the whole Miami thing, right? Playing Miami the last 2 years, wasted opportunity. Billy didn't really understand that intensity, right? There wasn't that intensity. When you got Gators on the staff, right, I can imagine that week coming into the Miami games, both of those practice weeks would have been a lot more intense with former Gator players out there coaching, right? Out on the field in the practice. That week would have been a lot more intense. We just didn't see that intensity when the players got on the field. And I think a lot of it has to do with people just not understanding how important that rivalry was to Gator Nation. So those are my three things on why I think we can start to buy into the honeymoon phase here, that this is going to extend past that honeymoon phase, right? Not guaranteeing a natty, not guaranteeing an undefeated season. I'm just saying I think Jon Sumrall is going to take the program in the right direction. Remember, subscribe, ding, like the video, jump in the comments, tell me what you think. This is your boy, the Black Andy Cap. I'll see you next time. Peace.